Okay, so let's say you're thinking about setting up a whistleblower hotline. One that really works,
Yeah.
one that actually makes a difference.
Right.
We're diving into a podcast episode that really gets into how to make these hotlines effective.
Okay.
It's called Creating an Effective Whistleblower Hotline from the new Compliance Officers Playbook. This has some seriously insightful stuff.
Really?
Oh, yeah. This goes way beyond just the basics.
Okay. I'm interested.
All right, let's dive in.
This source really changes how we usually think about these hotlines.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of just like checking a box for compliance, it really emphasizes how they can actually build a culture
Oh, wow.
of ethics and accountability.
That's huge, right?
Totally.
It's not just about avoiding getting in trouble with the SEC or OSHA.
Exactly. It's about catching those little ethical problems early on, like almost like a smoke alarm before a fire gets out of control.
Okay.
Think about how much damage you can prevent if you address issues when they're still small.
Yeah, it's like having an extra layer of security, knowing you have a system in place so people can flag those concerns
Exactly.
before they become huge problems.
Yeah.
But I bet you're thinking, doesn't everyone already do this?
Well, you'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of companies, they just put a hotline number on a poster and call it a day.
Really?
Yeah, and this source, it really emphasizes that you have to offer a bunch of different ways to report things.
Oh.
Different ways that people are comfortable with.
Like, what kinds of things are we talking?
Well, you've got your traditional phone line, but also online portals. And you can even use email.
Oh, email. Okay.
Yeah, but obviously that's not as anonymous.
Right. Of course.
So it's really about meeting people where they are
Yeah.
and making it easy for them to report something however they feel comfortable doing it.
So it's about showing them you're taking this seriously.
Exactly. We want to hear from you no matter what.
Okay, but let's be real here. How many people are going to use a hotline if they think their name is going to be all over it?
You're right. That's the big issue.
Yeah.
A lot of hotlines fail because they don't deal with that fear.
So how do we fix that?
This source is all about anonymity being key.
Okay.
Absolutely crucial.
Okay.
And they have this interesting suggestion. They say, use a third party to run the hotline.
Really?
Yeah, think about it. Someone outside the company handles all those reports.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more separate, right?
Okay.
It increases confidentiality.
And that makes people more likely to come forward.
Exactly. And remember, early detection depends on people feeling safe enough to actually say something.
But even with all that, just having a hotline and expecting everyone to magically know about it and use it,
Yeah, right?
that's a bit of a stretch.
It's not enough.
Right.
It's like having a fire extinguisher in a closet.
Yeah.
And never telling anyone where it is.
Or how to use it.
Right.
Yeah.
This source really stresses that you have to tell people about the hotline and how it works.
Okay.
Regular reminders.
Yeah.
Training for everyone. And most importantly, leaders have to endorse it.
Oh, that's huge.
Right. Totally. It shows that
Mhm.
ethical conduct isn't just some slogan. It's actually part of the company's culture.
Yeah. It shows they mean it.
Exactly. It's about building a culture where people are expected to speak up and where it's encouraged, not just allowed.
Okay, so let's say we've got this anonymous, well-communicated hotline all set up. Someone actually takes the leap and makes a report.
Okay.
What happens next?
Right.
That's where things can get tricky.
Yeah, that's where a lot of companies mess up.
The investigation process.
Yeah. And it can really damage trust if it's not done right.
So what should it look like?
This source gets into some really important details. It's not just about someone glancing at the report.
Right.
You need dedicated teams to investigate.
Okay.
You need prompt responses and even independent oversight.
To make sure everything is fair.
Exactly.
And thorough.
If the investigation seems biased or sloppy,
Yeah.
or if it just doesn't happen,
Right.
that's going to scare people off.
Yeah. It discourages future reports.
For sure.
And it could really hurt the company's reputation.
Definitely.
Nobody wants to work for a company that sweeps things under the rug.
You got it.
Speaking of things that make people hesitate to report,
Uh-oh.
let's talk about retaliation.
The elephant in the room.
Right.
It's the silent killer of so many whistleblower systems.
Because people are afraid to speak up.
Exactly. They're afraid of what will happen to them.
And this source is very clear.
Yeah.
Strong anti-retaliation policies are non-negotiable.
They have to be strong, and they have to be enforced.
So what does that look like in practice?
It means you're actively monitoring for retaliation. You're training employees and managers on what retaliation is.
Okay.
And you have clear consequences for anyone who violates the policy.
So it's not just words on paper.
Nope. It's about creating a culture where retaliation is unthinkable.
It's about making people feel safe.
Exactly.
Like they can report misconduct without worrying about backlash.
It's about making doing the right thing the norm, not something that gets you punished.
It's about creating that safe space for people to speak up.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But there's so much more to uncover.
Right.
We'll move on to part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay.
Where we'll explore how to make this hotline not just functional, but truly impactful.
Sounds good.
So stay tuned.
I will. You know, it's easy to get caught up in setting everything up. The reporting channels and the investigations and the policies. But we can't forget about the people involved.
The human element.
Exactly. We're talking about real people.
Right.
Real people who are taking a risk by speaking up.
They need to know they're not alone.
Exactly. And this source really emphasizes that.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just have the system you have to create an environment where people feel supported.
Okay, so how do you actually do that? What are some concrete steps companies can take?
Communication is key.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to retaliation. Employees need to know, without a doubt, that retaliation is absolutely forbidden.
It can't just be talk.
No way there have to be real consequences for anyone who retaliates.
Actions speak louder than words, right?
Absolutely. And a big part of that is having a solid investigation process. One that's fair, impartial, and transparent.
You have to show them you're actually addressing the issues.
Yeah, not just brushing them under the rug.
And that includes keeping the whistleblower in the loop, right?
Absolutely. Keep them updated on the progress of the investigation, what's happening, what the timeline looks like.
It's a two-way street.
Exactly. You're treating the whistleblower as a partner in finding the truth.
It's like building trust between them and the company.
That's a great way to put it. You're recognizing that they've come forward with important information.
Yeah.
And it's in everyone's best interest to keep them informed.
Now, the source also mentions training, and I think that's where some companies might miss some important stuff.
Oh, yeah. Training is essential, and not just for employees.
Right. Everyone needs to be trained.
Managers, investigators, everyone.
So, employees need to know how to use the hotline, what their rights are, what to expect.
Yeah. They need to know the different ways to report things.
Right.
How to stay anonymous if they want to, and what kind of information to include in their report.
So they can use the system effectively.
Exactly.
And what about managers? What kind of training do they need?
Managers are usually the first person an employee talks to.
Right.
So they need to know how to respond appropriately.
Yeah.
How to listen without judgment, and how to escalate the issue without putting the employee at risk.
It's about creating a safe space for that first conversation.
Exactly.
And I imagine investigators need special training, too.
Absolutely. They need to be able to conduct thorough and impartial investigations.
Okay.
They need to understand the legal and ethical considerations, how to gather evidence, how to interview witnesses without bias, and how to keep everything confidential.
So it sounds like a company-wide effort is needed.
It has to be a priority woven into the company's values, with a clear commitment from leadership.
It's about creating a culture of ethics, transparency, and accountability.
Exactly.
And this isn't something you can just set up and forget about, right?
No, it's an ongoing process.
A constant evolution.
You're absolutely right. It's about always evaluating the system, getting feedback, and making adjustments as needed.
Okay.
But let's take this a step further. Imagine you've done all of this.
Okay.
You have a great hotline system. You've trained your staff.
Yeah.
You've built a culture where people feel safe speaking up.
Wow, that's great.
What's next?
Well, you want to know if it's actually working right.
Exactly. You want to see results. You want to measure the impact.
We need data.
Data is key. It's time to start tracking metrics and analyzing the data to see how the system is performing.
Now, that's not something the source goes into specifically, right?
It doesn't, but it's a crucial part.
Okay.
We need to go beyond just stories and look at the numbers.
Okay, what kind of numbers?
How many reports are we getting? What kinds of issues are being reported? How long does it take to resolve a case?
Yeah.
And what are the outcomes of those investigations?
So we're looking for patterns.
Yes,
like
exactly.
identifying red flags.
And using that information to improve the system.
Making data-driven decisions.
Precisely. But it's not just about the mechanics of the system.
Right.
You also want to know how well employees understand the hotline, how comfortable they feel using it.
Okay.
Do they think it's effective?
So we could use surveys or focus groups, maybe even anonymous feedback channels
Those are great ideas.
to get a sense of how employees feel.
That kind of data can help you identify trends and areas for improvement
Okay.
and ultimately make the system more responsive.
You know, I'm thinking back to what we talked about earlier about creating a safe space for people to speak up. Data can really help with that, can it?
Absolutely. If you can show through the data that the hotline is working,
Yeah.
that issues are being addressed fairly and efficiently,
Uh-huh.
and that retaliation is not tolerated,
It sends a powerful message.
it shows that the company is serious about ethical conduct.
This isn't just for show.
It's about building a safe and respectful workplace.
And that can lead to more people speaking up.
Exactly, a virtuous cycle.
This is all really interesting.
It is, isn't it?
We've covered the mechanics and the human element and now the data,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still more to explore
There is.
in our final part.
Can't wait.
So it's like we've built this amazing whistleblower hotline, right?
Yeah.
This finely tuned machine, but we can't just stop there.
Right. It's not a one-time thing.
You got to make sure it keeps running smoothly.
Keep it well-oiled.
Yeah, and that it's working as well as it can be.
Like any system, it needs maintenance and fine-tuning.
And it needs to adapt as the company changes, you know?
As the company grows.
As the industry changes, as employee needs change.
Right. And one of the best ways to keep improving is feedback.
Oh, the source talks about that a lot.
Yeah, they're very clear on that point.
This isn't a set it and forget it system.
No, you have to actively ask employees for feedback.
So are we talking like sending out surveys?
Surveys are good.
Yeah.
You can also do focus groups,
Okay.
have suggestion boxes, or even just encourage people to talk to their managers.
It's about making it easy for people to share their thoughts,
Exactly, and make it clear that their feedback is valued.
that it'll actually lead to changes.
And that's key. You have to act on the feedback you get.
Not just collect it and do nothing.
Right. You have to be willing to actually change the system based on what you hear.
So if employees are hesitant to use the online portal because they're worried about their privacy,
Yeah.
then maybe you need to look at your security again.
Or maybe you need to work with a third-party vendor.
Who specializes in these kinds of systems?
That's a good example.
It's about always looking for ways to make things better.
Improving the user experience, building trust in the system,
Yeah.
and removing any obstacles that are preventing people from using it.
Now, the source also mentions benchmarking, and I found that really interesting.
How do you think that fits into continuous improvement?
Well, it seems like a good way to get a bigger picture, right?
Yeah, and to see what you could be doing better.
You're comparing your program to other companies,
Right.
maybe in your industry, or to some kind of best practices.
So you can see what other people are doing well,
See how you measure up.
and maybe get some ideas for new things to try.
It's like having a roadmap to guide your improvement efforts.
That's a great way to put it.
We've talked about why hotlines matter,
Yeah.
how to design them, how to create that culture of trust around them,
Yeah.
and how to keep them running smoothly.
We've covered a lot.
But I want to go back to something the source said.
Okay.
They talk about the ultimate goal of a whistleblower hotline.
And it's not just about stopping bad behavior, is it?
It's about something much bigger.
What is it?
It's about building an ethical and accountable culture
Yeah.
within the entire organization.
It's about giving everyone a voice so they can speak up about their concerns,
Knowing they'll be heard.
knowing that things will be taken seriously.
And that everyone will be held to the same standards.
It's about making integrity the normal way of doing things.
And when you have that kind of culture,
Everyone benefits,
employees, customers, shareholders,
even society as a whole.
it's really amazing to think about the positive impact a hotline can have.
It's more than just checking a box.
It's a force for positive change.
I agree.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Hmm.
what's the one thing you want our listener to take away from this?
I'd say a truly effective hotline is much more than just a number or a website.
It's a sign of the company's commitment
To ethics, to transparency,
to accountability.
it shows they really care about doing the right thing.
And it takes a lot of effort to make it successful.
You need a good design,
Clear communication,
strong procedures,
ongoing training, continuous improvement,
and a real commitment to building that culture of trust.
where everyone feels safe and empowered to speak up.
When you put all those pieces together,
Yeah,
you're not just building a hotline,
you're building a better company,
a more ethical company.
a company that people can be proud of.
That's a great way to put it.
And on that note,
Mm.
we'll leave our listeners with this question.
Okay.
If you were leading a company,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you would prioritize to make your hotline really effective?
Think about it.
What's your first step towards building that culture of trust and accountability?
It's a good question.
Until next time, keep diving deep.